Discover the incredible $1 miracle that turned a laughing millionaire's life completely around. In the heart of a small Midwestern town, Jake was nobody's version of a millionaire. At 35, he was a cheerful mechanic, his laughter infectious and his kindness immeasurable. Day after day, he mended his neighbor's cars, often for what felt like spare change. Despite the dim view of financial futures cast over him, Jake's optimism sparkled bright. Yet, he labored under the weight of dreams that seemed as far away as the sun on a cloudy day. Dreams of owning his own garage where he could spread laughter and goodwill along with oil and grease. One radiant morning, while sifting through the dusty remains of his late grandfather's tool shed, Jake stumbled upon a tarnished, iridescent dollar coin. It glimmered with such a magnetic pull that he could hardly dismiss it. This coin wasn't just a piece of currency. It was steeped in legend and a story of resilience. After a quick dive into some research, he learned it had, in its own humble way, weathered financial storms and hoarded more than just value. It held the power of hope. With excitement bubbling within, Jake hatched a wondrous plan. Why not use his skills to revive old engines for free? He could rally the town's folk, blending tools with talents, reinvigorating their community through cooperation. As the murmurs of his mission spread, neighbors who once opened their wallets to a mechanic now began to share their time, expertise, and smiles. Families who had drifted apart felt the warmth returning. Engines roared back to life alongside laughter, and old grievances diminished in the flood of camaraderie. But not all was smooth sailing. From the shadows emerged Jake's estranged brother, who had left for the city in pursuit of fast money, abandoning the family's values. Their reunion was a powder keg, igniting old arguments about success, loyalty, and hard work versus the allure of wealth. Voices raised, townspeople watched with bated breath. Their excitement turned to whispering tensions. They could see both brothers wrestle with their pasts, the golden boy of the city, the steadfast keeper of familial tradition. Each family held their breath as they weighed the judgment of their own paths. Just then, word got out about the big car show Jake had planned. It was a celebration of their hard work, a showcase of restored engines, and now it was a battleground for family bonds. Would Jake let his brother join in, welcoming him back, or keep him at a distance, hurting still from their past? It seemed the community's values of unity and understanding were now on trial. Before we continue, I need to let you know about something important that's happening. YouTube has been making changes to the system, and many people are losing notifications from channels they follow. If you're enjoying the content, hit that bell and mark all notifications so you don't miss the next videos. And if you can drop a like, it really helps me with reach. Seriously, it makes a difference. Oh, let me know in the comments where you're watching from. I'm always curious to know who's on the other side of the screen. Now let's continue. As the day of the car show approached, excitement bubbled and fears festered. Jake stood before his community, ready to share the tale of the dollar coin, a story about family over fortune, hard work over short-lived gain. Laughter filled the air as engines roared. But as the crowd cheered, Jake felt the weight of his brother's past decisions shadow the moment. The day was still young, but the future loomed uncertain. Would Jake's brother recapture their bond, or would greed and pride remain a wall between them? As Jake took a deep breath, with laughter twinkling in his eyes, he felt a mix of hope and trepidation for what lay ahead. The sun broke through the clouds on the day of the car show, bathing the town in warm, golden light. Jake stood behind a makeshift stage, surrounded by a smattering of tools, each one polished and ready for display. As the smell of fresh coffee wafted through the air, mingling with the aroma of grilled burgers, he tried to focus on the task at hand, but his heart raced with anxiety. His brother, Mike, had agreed to help out, but would he just show up to pull pranks, or would he genuinely want to mend the rift between them? The crowd began to gather, laughter and chatter buzzing all around. The townspeople were eager to celebrate Jake's efforts, but a sense of unease drizzled over him like the gentle breeze. "Hey, buddy," a voice broke through his thoughts. It was Lucy, the town's sunbeam, her bright smile making the moment lighter. "Are you ready for this? You've single-handedly brought everyone together." Jake managed to smile, Yeah, I guess you could say that. But as he scanned the crowd, hoping to catch a glimpse of Mike, reality tugged at his heartstrings. "Jake!" yelled his neighbor, Tom, striding over, his hands waving wildly. "Look at this beauty." He pointed to a classic Mustang gleaming in the sunlight. Jake was grateful for the support, for the camaraderie he had helped inspire. But as more townsfolk arrived, the joy grew heavy. He noticed whispers ripple through the crowd like an electric current every time Mike's name was mentioned. Would the show reflect Jake's mission of community spirit? Or would the expectations tied to his brother shatter that illusion? Then, about an hour in, Mike appeared. He leaned against a weathered truck, hands shoved deep in his pockets, scanning the scene with a tight-lipped smile. Jake's stomach twisted. What was he thinking? Was he really there to help, or was this just a performance? Before he had time to think further, the announcer's voice boomed through the speakers. "Everyone, let us give a big round of applause to Jake for his incredible work in our community." The crowd erupted, and Jake's cheeks flushed as he bowed his head with humility. Then, almost as if sensing his panic, Mike stepped forward into the spotlight. The clapping waned, replaced with hushed whispers. "I'm proud of my brother," he began, glancing at Jake. "I may not have understood him back then, but I see now how much we need each other." Jake's heart raced, a mix of surprise and hope battling within him. Was Mike really making this effort, or was he simply searching for redemption? The crowd seemed held in a breath, caught between disbelief and anticipation. "This isn't just about cars," Mike continued, his voice earnest yet laced with uncertainty. "It's about second chances. For all of us." An electric silence enveloped the crowd, eyes flickering between the two brothers. Jake could see people's faces, emotions swirling: hope, confusion, empathy. He walked towards Mike, but as he did, he felt a surge of memories wash over him. Late-night arguments, broken promises, lost time. The flicker in his brother's eyes mirrored his own struggles. The future seemed hanging in the balance, every word crackling with intensity. As he reached for Mike's hand, Jake couldn't shake the unease. Could they truly mend what had been broken? Could they both step into this new beginning they both waited for? The crowd was alive, but within Jake, a storm brewed. He knew this moment would define them. Would they leave the past behind and start anew? Or was this just another fleeting moment in a long history of pain? And then it happened, the moment that could change everything. A loud crash echoed across the fairgrounds. Jake's heart sank. The futures they both dreamed of were suddenly vulnerable once more. What had just crumbled? And would they be able to rebuild together? Or would this be one more fracture in their already fragile bond? The commotion pierced the air like a jagged shard of glass. Jake's eyes darted toward the source of the noise. A tent had collapsed, canvas flapping wildly, sending a trio of folding chairs tumbling like toys. The crowd gasped in unison. "Everyone, stay calm," Jake shouted, instinctively moving toward the chaos. He could hear the shuffling of feet, the sharp intake of breath as people assessed the situation. His heart raced, not just from panic but from the realization that this was a moment branched from their shared past, their family gatherings where chaos churned into laughter, but also into fear. Mike was at his side in an instant. "Let us check for injuries," he yelled, breaking through the tension that threatened to choke everyone. In that moment, something shifted between them. The weight of their history felt lighter, transformed by a shared purpose. They weaved through the growing crowd, bending to help an elderly woman who had been caught under a stoically placed picnic table. Jake could see the fear in her eyes, reflecting his own turmoil. "Are you okay?" he asked gently, as he and Mike pulled the table off of her legs. The woman's grateful smile was enough to thaw the ice between the brothers. It was fleeting but powerful, a reminder of connection, a feeling Jake had longed for. He caught Mike's eye, and for the first time in a long while, they nodded at each other, a shared understanding coursing silently between them. "Grab that beam," Mike shouted, motioning to the top of the collapsing tent. Without hesitation, Jake scrambled up, hands gripping the uneven wooden frame. He could hear Mike below giving instructions, bringing order to the chaos. It was teamwork born from necessity, but it felt like something more, an emerging bond. As they secured the structure, laughter began to ripple through the crowd that just moments ago had been tight with anxiety. The woman they had helped rose to her feet, joining in the laughter with a blush on her cheeks. Her spirit seemed to lift everyone else, reminding them they were all part of this community, not strangers, but companions in this moment of uncertainty. "See," Mike said, leaning in closer. "It's all about being there for each other." Jake's heart swelled. He wanted to believe Mike's words held truth, that they could truly start fresh today, as brothers and, more importantly, as friends. But a flicker of doubt still nagged at the back of his mind. The years of hurt were not erased in a single act of heroism. Once they finished stabilizing the tent, the crowd erupted in applause. Eyes twinkled with gratitude, laughter bubbled once more. But Jake couldn't shake the spiraling thoughts inside him. "Hey!" Lucy's voice broke through, pulling them both back to the present. She was beaming, handing them each a cold drink. "You two were amazing. Look at this place. The show is back on track." Jake took a sip, feeling the coolness wash over him, bringing clarity. In the distance, however, the tension lingered, the remnants of doubt and fear, the shadow of what lay ahead. "Listen, Mike," he said cautiously as the cheers faded. "We need to talk. This can't just be a surface-level fix. We need to figure us out." Mike's expression shifted, and he nodded gravely. "I know. Let us not waste this chance." Before either brother could delve deeper, a familiar sound echoed through the air again, a horn blaring, loud and obnoxious. The crowd turned as a beat-up old car screeched into view, its engine sputtering, barely functional but alive. The moment hung in the air, charged with possibility and uncertainty. Would this be a distraction or another opportunity to mend what they had? Jake glanced at Mike, heart pounding. With a shared grin, they realized they were ready to embrace whatever came next together. But then, the car backfired, filling the atmosphere with a cloud of smoke, leaving them choking, laughing, uncertain. Could this be the real beginning they both sought after in a world where remnants of their past still lingered? What would it take to fully pull them back into the light? The smoke hung thick in the air, an unexpected wall that blurred everything just enough to create laughter and confusion. Jake coughed, hand instinctively waving in front of his face, as he tried to find his balance again. The crowd shrieked and laughed, shaking off the surprise, and in that moment of levity, Jake felt something shift. He turned to look at Mike, whose eyes sparkled with mischief. "What are the odds that car actually works?" Jake joked, trying to play along. His brother chuckled, brushing smoke from his shirt. There was something freeing in this chaos, something that reminded Jake of the simple pleasures in life. Within moments, Lucy was drawing nearer, her face alight with excitement. "You two are the stars of the day," she exclaimed, clapping her hands as if to cheer them on further. The lively atmosphere was infectious, and for a moment, even Jake's troubles felt small against the backdrop of laughter and camaraderie. But as people began wandering back to their conversations, Jake felt the moment fading. The jubilant cheers faded into whispers, and the crowd began to dissolve like the last remnants of fog at dawn. He peered at Mike, who had taken a step back, eyes scanning the dissipating crowd. "Look, we really should talk," Jake insisted, voice low as he slipped into a more serious tone. "Yeah, I know," Mike replied, running a hand through his hair. "But do we have to do it here? Right in front of everyone? Where else?" Jake shrugged. "We keep pushing things aside, but they're still there. Look, it's already changed. We worked together today. That has to mean something." Mike hesitated, the weight of Jake's words grounding him. He pulled a tight breath through an uncertain chest. "What do you want from me, Jake?" His frustration bubbled under the surface, and Jake saw it in the clenching of Mike's fists. "I want us to be real, as brothers, as friends. If we keep stumbling around each other, how will anything change?" A silence hung between them, heavy with unspoken words. In the distance, children laughed, running after one another, the innocence in their voices a sharp contrast to the tension brewing between the brothers. Jake watched on, heart heavy with memories of their own childhood, when life was simple and laughter was endless. Finally, Mike sighed, his guard slowly dropping. Okay, let us find somewhere to sit down. We both know this is bigger than just today. With a nod, Jake gestured toward an old wooden picnic table not far from the crowd. It was worn and rough, a relic of days gone by. They moved away from the hustle, taking their place at the table, the memories of laughter slowly morphing into a blanket of apprehension. As they sat side by side, the world around them softened, colors dimming just enough to allow for deeper clarity. Jake's heart raced, anxiety creeping back in, as if to remind him of every failed attempt to bridge their rift. Jake, Mike began slowly, do you think we can really fix this? Can we go back to how things were before everything? The vulnerability in Mike's voice struck Jake deeply, stirring up something that felt like hope. Maybe we can't go back, Jake proposed, searching for the right words. But we can start again right here. This moment, this chance. We just have to face it. The air was thick with promise. But it didn't escape Jake's notice how reluctant Mike looked, still plagued by their history. Suddenly, the beat-up car sputtered again, drawing a crowd's laughter as a small child jumped out, pretending to be a race car driver. All eyes were drawn again to that car, a chaotic source of joy and noise, and for a moment, Jake couldn't help but think. Perhaps this instance, amidst uncertainty, could serve as a reminder for them too. As Mike opened his mouth, ready to respond, a shout broke through the laughter. Hey, watch out! A moment later, a figure came rushing toward them, arms flailing wildly. Jake's heart stopped. What was happening now? Would this be another chance to step in, or something that threatened to break them apart once again? Would they find a way to navigate this new chaos as they had before? Jake instinctively stood up, eyes widened as the figure drew closer, panic igniting within him. It was a young boy, maybe 8 years old, barreling toward them with a red plastic car trailing behind. His laughter melded with the chaos around them, a sound that filled the air with a sense of reckless joy, and yet, the urgency of the moment cut through everything like a knife. Mike instinctively moved closer to Jake, shoulder brushing against him. What's he doing? He muttered, half amused and half worried. Get down, Jake shouted, glancing at the boy's frantic expression as he tripped, the small car popping loose from his grip. It skidded across the ground like a skipping stone, barreling toward a group of unsuspecting teens nearby. Time slowed as the crowd shifted, laughter turning into shrieks. Jake's stomach knotted. He couldn't just stand there while chaos unfolded. Mike! He yelled over the sound of rising panic. Without waiting for a response, Jake took off, sprinting towards the boy. With each stride, he felt a sense of urgency push him forward. The child's glee transformed into shock as he hit the ground, tucked into a small ball of limbs and lost aspirations. Jake reached him just as the car hit the legs of one of the teens, who stumbled backward, laughing at first but quickly falling flat on his back. The laughter of the crowd morphed into gasps. Jake scooped the boy up, lifting him effortlessly into the air. You good? You all right? He asked, trying to quench his own frantic heartbeat. The boy's eyes lit up, tears glistening but overshadowed by a smile that broke through. I was trying to drive fast, he exclaimed, full of wild energy. Jake chuckled, relief flooding through him. But he couldn't shake off the feeling of tension that had hung between him and Mike moments prior. He set the boy down gently and turned around, searching for Mike. Their eyes locked across the small sea of spectators, and Jake saw something shift in Mike's expression, a glimmer of admiration mixed with surprise. You all right? Mike asked as he approached, his voice laced with newfound respect. There was something in the way he looked at Jake. It was the first time in a long while that Jake felt as though he hadn't just been a brother but also a protector. Yeah, just caught him before he hit the ground, Jake replied, wiping a bead of sweat from his brow, his adrenaline slowly receding. You moved fast, man. Like really fast. Mike shook his head, a small smile tugging at his lips. I think that's what we need. A little speed, a little reckless passion. In that moment, something began to soften in the air around them. The laughter of the crowd resumed, filling the space with an unfiltered happiness that Jake realized they both desperately needed. The noise around them felt like a chorus celebrating an unbreached bond. Do you think Jake hesitated? Desire blooming but quickly stunting under history's weight. Do you think we can find that again? Just in our own way? Mike paused, a spark igniting in his eyes. Yeah, I think we can. But it won't be easy. We need to push through the awkwardness too. Jake nodded, wishing he could reach out and shake away all the years of uncertainty. Together, he pressed, offering the kind of hope they hadn't spoken about in years. A silence settled in, thick with tension but lightened by laughter still echoing from the crowd. Mike took a deep breath and finally smiled, a genuine burst of connection that lit something inside Jake. Just then, a loud shout erupted from behind them, a burst of energy distracting their moment. What now? Jake laughed, the bond still fresh in the air. But as they turned, something unforeseen loomed ahead, a street performer setting up, drawing a crowd with impressive tricks. Suddenly, Jake felt a pull inside him. It wasn't just the energy of the moment. It was the realization that every choice they made could either build walls or break them down. What if? Jake began, excitement bubbling at the surface. What if this was their moment to leap, to reclaim what they'd lost? As Mike regarded the performer, Jake could sense a shift in him too, an openness that hadn't existed just moments ago. But they needed to grasp this momentum before it slipped away again. What if we join him and then find our rhythm? Jake threw out the idea, excitement dancing in his voice. Mike turned towards him, a hesitant but determined grin spreading across his face, beginning to weave together emerging hope with the chaos around. Yeah. Let us see where this takes us. And with that, juggling their shared past and a shimmering thread of potential, they stepped toward the performer. How would they navigate this new adventure? Together? What awaited them as they reached for the magic in the moment? The street performer was a whirlwind of color and movement. With bright clothing that sparkled in the sun, he juggled brightly painted balls like they were extensions of his own hands. The crowd swelled around him, drawn in by the rhythmic clashing of objects and an infectious energy that seemed to vibrate through the air. Jake could feel that same energy tugging at him, a pulse that resonated with something deep inside. Come on, let us get closer, Jake shouted, pulling Mike along as they squeezed their way to the front. The laughter and cheers of the audience wrapped around them, pulling them into a shared experience that felt almost magical. As they reached the front row, the performer, a wiry man with a wild mane of curls, caught sight of them. You two look like you need a little excitement, he called out, his voice booming over the noise. How about joining me? Jake's heart raced. This was it. This was the moment. What do you think? He turned to Mike, his eyes wide with anticipation. Are you serious? Mike chuckled, a hesitant smile creeping across his lips. But something flickered in his gaze that hadn't been there before. Jake could see it, a spark of adventure waiting to be ignited. Let us do it, Jake answered, adrenaline coursing through him. With a nod that was more a leap of faith, they stepped forward from the crowd, grabbing the attention of onlookers who now whispered among themselves. It felt surreal, like they were being thrust into a scene out of a wild dream. The performer clapped his hands. All right, boys, if you want excitement, you've come to the right place. Let us show them what you've got. Jake swallowed hard, the nerves bubbling up inside him. But as he glanced at Mike, he saw a determination reflected back. They were in this together, and there was no turning back now. The past felt like a heavy cloak, but in that instant, it began to loosen. With a contagious laughter, the performer tossed them each a ball. Start simple. Just try to catch, he instructed, and to Jake it felt like the simplest thing in the world. He caught his ball, and Mike's laughter echoed as he fumbled with his own. Catching turned to tossing, and soon they were in a rhythm, each throw igniting a thrill. Their mistakes became part of the act, with the crowd cheering them on. As the laughter soared around him, Jake could feel the walls of their past beginning to crumble. See? You've got the hang of it, the performer cheered, glancing back at them with a twinkle in his eye. Now, let us kick it up a notch. The juggler started spinning faster, dancing around them, his energy relentless. Remember, it's got to be about having fun. No pressure. Jake felt the pressure give way to something lighter, a freedom he hadn't experienced in years. With each catch and toss, he felt more alive. The crowd's excitement fueled him. Every cheer pushing boundaries he didn't know existed. But just as he felt solid in the rhythm, they hit a snag. Mike tossed low, Jake aimed high. The balls collided mid-air, falling to the ground in furry chaos. The laughter from the crowd morphed into an uproar of friendly jeers. "All right, let us regroup." The performer laughed, and like an old friend, he pulled them back into the fold. "Let us take this one step at a time." Jake looked at Mike, their eyes locking in shared embarrassment that quickly shifted to glee. Was it really that easy to shift gears? To find joy in the unexpected? As they caught their breath, Jake drew in a deep, refreshing gulp of air. "We can definitely do this," he said softly, realizing the undeniable truth behind what they were creating together. "Together," Mike echoed, his voice low but steady, a pact forming between them, stronger than the years that had plagued them. But just as the moment settled, the performer threw out a challenge. "Next, we'll need a volunteer from the crowd." He scanned the audience with a mischievous glint in his eye, and Jake felt a knot form in his stomach. "Are you ready to step into the spotlight?" Mike whispered, a grin breaking across his face, pushing Jake toward the edge of uncertainty that pulsed between them. Before he could even think it through, Jake raised his hand, energy sparking around him. What awaited them next? Would stepping forward break them apart or solidify something he had longed for? Jake's heart pounded like a drum in his chest. The eyes of the crowd felt heavy on him, both exhilarating and terrifying. He stepped forward, willing himself not to back down. His face was flushed, caught between fear and an electrifying excitement. The performer grinned widely, clearly loving the moment. "Wonderful. Come on up." He gestured to Jake, beckoning him as if he were the most important person in the universe. As Jake approached, he could hear the audience murmuring, their curiosity turning into a wave of smiles and cheers. It was strange to feel like the center of attention, a feeling he had shied away from for so long. But something in this moment felt different, like the air itself vibrated with possibility. "Now, tell me your name," the performer said, placing a hand on Jake's shoulder. "Jake," he managed, his voice barely above a whisper. "And this is your partner?" he asked, turning to Mike. "Yeah, that's Mike," Jake said, almost surprised by the enthusiasm that surged through him. The crowd erupted in cheers again, encouraging them like old friends. The performer clapped his hands together, rallying them. "All right, Jake and Mike, it looks like you're going to be my assistants." Jake felt the weight of expectation settle on his shoulders, and, for the first time, he didn't choke. He smiled back at Mike, who was watching him, his expression a mixture of pride and disbelief. They were in this crazy adventure together. The performer turned to the audience. "I'm going to show you something incredible, but it requires a little bit of faith, and a whole lot of fun." "Faith? Fun? Those are my specialties," Jake shouted, and cheers erupted from the crowd. The thrill of it, that simple declaration, filled him with a lightness he hadn't felt in ages. "Let us see if you two can handle a challenge," the performer said, handing Jake a brightly painted ball. "Here's your task. Keep this ball spinning on your finger while you both juggle." Jake stared at the ball as if it were a ticking bomb. "No pressure?" he asked, half joking yet half terrified. "None at all," the performer replied with a wink, stepping back to give them space. The crowd burst into laughter, a few encouraging shouts ringing out. "You got this." With a deep breath, Jake steadied the ball on his finger. Felt surreal. He caught sight of Mike, who was already tossing one of the juggling balls with a confidence that fired Jake's spirit. "Okay," Jake said, his voice gaining strength. "Let us go." As they started, their motions became a beautiful rhythm, Jake spinning the ball while throwing and catching the juggled items with Mike. For a moment, nothing else mattered. It was just them, lost in an ocean of laughter and applause. The weight of the past faded, replaced by something sweetly liberating. But just when they began to feel accomplished, a rush of excitement surged through them. A ball slipped from Jake's grasp. In a split second, he saw it tumble toward the ground, the air shifting from joy to gasps of shock. Time slowed, and he dove for the ball, catching it just before it hit the wooden surface. The crowd let out a collective cheer and a laughter that echoed in Jake's ears, defying gravity in that moment. "See? You're doing brilliantly," the performer said, clapping his hands. Jake caught Mike's eye, their shared excitement radiating. He had faced failure, and yet here they were, savored by laughter rather than shame. The crowd cheered louder, but the moment stretched. Suddenly, the performer handed Mike a microphone. "Let us hear from our stars. What made you jump into this crazy adventure?" Jake froze, a rush of panic flowing through him. "What do I say? What do I say? Just speak from the heart." The performer encouraged, his eyes bright and welcoming. A choice lay ahead. Would Jake dare to explore the vulnerability that came with sharing? With the world watching, did he have the courage to embrace not just joy, but the honesty of who he was? Mike gave him an encouraging nudge, and the microphone felt heavy in Jake's hand. He opened his mouth, ready to share the truth of the moment, but the world held its breath, waiting. What story would he tell? Jake's heart raced as he held the microphone, feeling every gaze locked onto him, a sea of eager faces waiting for his words. He hesitated, feeling the familiar fear creeping in, the urge to hide mingling with the exhilaration coursing through him. But then he heard it, a soft cheer from Mike, an anchor in the whirlwind of his thoughts. This is unbelievable," Jake stammered, glancing at the crowd and trying to find courage in their smiles. "I guess I decided to jump in because life is too short to play it safe all the time, right?" The audience responded with a wave of applause, their positivity wrapping around him like a warm embrace. Each clap fueled his confidence. "It feels great to be here, to do something exciting, something I never thought I would." He laughed lightly, the sound growing more natural. "A few months ago I would have run away from this, but today I wanted to feel alive." Silence descended for a heartbeat, and he felt the weight of vulnerability hanging in the air, palpable yet freeing. "I've always struggled with fear, I guess. Fear of failure, fear of not being enough." He glanced at Mike, who nodded reassuringly, encouragement glowing in his eyes. "But in this moment, I realized that falling feels a whole lot better when you've got someone to catch you." The crowd erupted again, the energy electric. Jake could hardly believe the words were coming from him. He looked at Mike, and something clicked within him. A realization that they didn't just share a friendship, they carried each other. Without thinking, he added, "I jumped into this crazy adventure because I wanted to prove to myself that I could, that I deserve joy." He found his voice rising with conviction. "We all deserve joy, and if I can do this, then maybe we can all find our brave moments, no matter how small they seem." Another cheer erupted from the audience, and Jake couldn't help but smile brighter. The adrenaline surged through him, and he looked beyond the crowd, picturing moments of quiet bravery in his life every time he had stepped outside his comfort zone, every time he chose to reach for happiness. "Thank you all for believing in us. And hey, if we can do it, so can you." He stepped back, handing the microphone back to the performer, who was grinning like a Cheshire cat. "Onward, my brave adventurers. Just wait until you see what's next," the performer proclaimed, his voice booming over the remnants of applause, and the atmosphere swelled. But as Jake and Mike stepped away from the stage, a question loomed over them, an echo in Jake's mind. What would it take to keep this momentum going? The night was still young, and as they mingled with the crowd, it became clear that this was only the beginning. Adventure awaited just beyond the glow of the stage lights, a pull toward something yet undiscovered. As laughter danced through the air, Jake looked at Mike, a twinkle of wonder in his eyes. "So what's next? Ready for more?" Jake asked, energy buzzing between them. "Absolutely," Mike replied, excitement bubbling over. But as they started to move toward the bustling crowd, Jake felt a familiar shadow inching back in a whisper of doubt that wouldn't let go. Would this moment of courage spark something lasting, or would he fall back into old patterns? Somewhere in that crowd, Answers awaited, but first, they needed to dive deeper into the night and themselves. As they wove through the vibrant crowd, Jake could still feel the energy buzzing around him. People were high-fiving, laughing, and sharing stories that would likely become cherished memories. Yet, a part of Jake lingered on the edge of uncertainty, battling the exhilarating thrill of the night with memories of quiet defeat. "What do you want to do?" Mike asked, bouncing on his heels, the anticipation in his voice palpable. Jake glanced around, the kaleidoscope of colors swirling from neon lights and the chatter of voices creating a symphony of excitement. But all he could focus on was that pesky whisper in his mind, cautioning him, reminding him of the safe boundaries he had always painted around his heart. He thought again of that moment on stage, how liberating it felt, but what would it take to break the patterns forged over years? "Maybe I should just take it easy," he said, searching Mike's face for understanding. "Take it easy?" Mike laughed lightly after that speech. "No way. Tonight is about pushing boundaries and having fun. Remember how you felt up there?" Jake nodded slowly, remembering how it felt to release those fears, if only for a moment. "Yeah, I felt alive." His own words surprised him even amidst the doubts. "Exactly. So, let us do something." Mike's eyes sparkled. "How about some karaoke? This place has the best stage just like you just conquered. We could go all out." The thought sparkled in the air like the lights above them. Karaoke. Another stage. A chance to shine or maybe stutter, but either way it felt like more than just a game. Felt like a challenge. "All right," Jake exclaimed, emboldened by a surge of adrenaline. "Let us do it." As they made their way to the karaoke area, Jake noticed a group of familiar faces, friends from work who were equally enthusiastic about the festivities. They waved and hollered, urging him to join in the fun. Suddenly, his heart sank again. What would they think? Doubt crept in, threatening to steal his spark. "Simon, Jake, get up here," someone shouted from the crowd, and the world around him grew fuzzy. "Are you all right?" Mike asked, sensing the shift in Jake's demeanor. "I don't know. What if I forget the lyrics? What if I mess up?" Jake's voice trembled, just barely above a whisper. "Hey," Mike said, stepping closer, his voice low. "Remember what you said? If you fall, I'll catch you. Besides, who cares if it's perfect? It's about being real, being you." Jake took a deep breath, allowing Mike's reassurance to seep into his anxious mind. The memories of his stage performance didn't just bring the thrill of triumph. They urged him to share those feelings again, to embrace the laughter and the possible embarrassment. Maybe this was his chance to start over, to ride that wave of confidence just a little longer. As they approached the mic, Jake's heartbeat quickened, but not with fear. This was the rhythm of possibility. "Let us do this," Jake whispered, stepping up to the stage with Mike right by his side. The crowd roared in approval at their boldness, a wave of encouragement crashing over him. As Mike adjusted the microphone, Jake closed his eyes for a moment, letting the noise fade away until all he could hear was his own heartbeat. This was it. "All right, which song are you going to pick?" Mike asked, breaking through the moment. "Something fun," Jake decided, feeling a grin grow on his face. "Then let us go big." Mike laughed, already scanning the song list. As the first notes began, Jake looked out at the audience, seeing a sea of smiles, faces lighting up, eager for the moment. It was no longer about perfection. It was about sharing joy, joy that had felt so distant for far too long. But deep down, a question lingered. Was this feeling merely a fleeting bubble of happiness, or a door to something far greater? With every beat of the music, Jake stepped into the unknown again, believing this one night could ignite something lasting. And somewhere in the shadows of the crowd, a figure watched closely, and as the laughter broke out, their intention grew more defined. The notes floated into the air, lifting Jake's spirits higher. Each chord hit like a pulse of unity, vibrating with anticipation. Surrounded by friends, laughter, and a growing sense of belonging, he stepped up to the microphone, barely registering the lyrics before singing along the familiar tune. "What's the worst that could happen?" he thought. This wasn't just a song. It was a declaration of resilience. He thrust himself into the rhythm, losing himself in unfiltered joy. Mike matched his energy, a perfect harmony, and all at once, Jake was no longer a mechanic with shattered dreams but a part of something larger. A moment that lit up the night. When the chorus hit, the crowd erupted in a frenzy of claps and cheers. Time warped around them. It was exhilarating. He locked eyes with Mike, and in that shared glance, their resolve solidified. Brothers, partners, friends standing shoulder to shoulder, building something enduring from the rubble of years past. And then, amidst the chorus, a familiar and unexpected laugh caught his ear. He turned his head and caught sight of his estranged brother, Mike's face glowing with pride. The air around them crackled as Jake suddenly felt the weight of every moment spent apart melt away. Their shared history filled with pain and uncertainty faded into the background. When the last note faded, a raucous cheer erupted from the audience, a testament to the courage every one of them had shown that night. Breathless and exhilarated, Jake relinquished the microphone to the next performer, a feeling of lightness washing over him. He quickly glanced over and noted that the figure observing from the crowd had made his way closer. It was a reminder that connections were not limited to blood. Every relationship added depth to the tapestry of their lives. "So what's next?" Mike asked, still buzzing with energy. "You know what?" Jake replied, mulling over the night's events. "I think we can make this a regular thing. What if we bring everyone together, not just for a night but to build something meaningful that lasts?" "Are you thinking what I'm thinking?" Mike chimed in, his eyes lighting up with possibilities. "Yeah. A community garage where we can host events like this, even workshops. We can use the old tools your grandpa left and get everyone involved. Collaborating instead of competing." The prospect changed the air once more, filled with urgency and promise. "Let us talk to the town's council," Mike declared, invigorated. "Together, we can show everyone the importance of joining forces, of lifting each other up." Before their conversation could take flight, a group of kids rushed past, and one of them tripped, sprawling onto the ground. Without hesitation, Jake and Mike were in action, racing to offer their hands. Helping the kid up, Jake glanced at the faces around him, a reflection of tomorrow. "See?" Jake pointed out, turning back to Mike. "We've been given this chance, and it's about more than just us. It's about this right here community." The sun began to dip, knots of color streaking across the sky, much like the connection they were building. Families began gathering together, sharing stories that tugged at the heartstrings and reminded them all about the power of kindness, friends, and the simple joy of being present. "I can feel the shift," Mike said as they watched the community come alive. The chaos of earlier seemed a distant memory as they stood together. "This has always been our legacy, hasn't it?" The past had forged their bond, and now it propelled them forward together. Taking a deep breath, Jake felt a shift within himself. The clouds of doubt that had loomed heavy were parting to reveal something brighter. The doubt turned into determination. As the last notes of music faded into laughter and conversations around them, something clicked. They would take this moment and build on it. They had a chance to transform a small act of kindness into a kingdom of dreams, one mechanic, one brother, one community at a time. "Let us make this happen," Jake said, exhilaration pulsating through him. "For them and for us." And as the stars flickered into the night sky, a revolution of hearts soared. They weren't just mechanics or estranged brothers anymore. They were builders, visionaries, and amid the laughter, they felt that their dreams had only just begun to take shape. The night promised new adventures, new challenges, and together, they would meet each moment with open arms. Jake felt a sense of closure wash over him. Not just for himself but for all their shared experiences, their fears transformed into fuel. And as the last light dimmed, those lingering doubts became distant echoes. The weight of histories faded under the warmth of possibilities ahead. Now it's your turn. Subscribe immediately to the channel to not miss the next exclusive stories. Leave a like now to feed the algorithm. Every click counts. Comment your reactions and feelings about the ending. We want to hear from you. Share instantly this video with at least 5 friends who need to see this transformation. This is the moment to show your support. Don't wait not even one more second to share. Only true fans understand the importance of backing the channel through your actions.